Hello guys, welcome to this video. So today we're going to be looking at From the Earth to the Moon by Jules Verne, and we're just going to summarize the novel and go into somewhat of analysis of the novel. So first let's just start off with the light summary of what the novel is about. So the novel starts off with these members of a gun club in Baltimore. So this gun club is an American club all over the states and has many members. And so the American Civil War has ended, and these members of the gun club essentially are very bored. They had nothing to do because during the Civil War they were essentially making these cannons and testing them out on their enemies during the Civil War. And now that there is no war, there are essentially there's no point in making cannons. And so we see that the members of the gun club, especially in the early chapters, want to leave the gun club and they feel like they have no purpose. But by the end of the second chapter, we see that, by the end of the first chapter, we see that the president of the gun club, Barbicane, has an announcement. And so the announcement is that they're going to be making a projectile, or what we would call a rocket, to go to the moon. And so the story is essentially how the gun club, and especially the president and his inner circle, create a projectile to go to the moon. But as we see later on, this projectile, it becomes an actual a ship in a sense, because they make room for people to be inside it. And Barbicane and a few other characters enter this essentially projectile, and the launch is successful, and they make it to the moon. And the book ends on essentially like a cliffhanger, because we find out that the rocket didn't actually make it to the moon. It stuck in the moon's orbit, so it's essentially just going around the moon in circles. And Jules Verne, he actually wrote a sequel to this novel, which I won't talk about because that's a spoiler. But you find out what happens to the projectile and Barbicane and all the other people inside it in his next novel. And then, so just back to Jules Verne here. So Jules Verne, he did consciously set out to go write this novel, a science fiction novel, and so it is regarded as the first science fiction novel. But it's debatable between Frankenstein by Mary Shelley and this novel, From the Earth to the Moon. And so during Jules Verne's time, one thing that influenced him and was happening all around him during this time was the Industrial Revolution. And this was essentially just a series of changes in the production and distribution of consumer goods. And so this resulted in an unprecedented rise in the standards of living for people in what we now call the developed world. And so because of this Industrial Revolution and the creation of the assembly line, manufacturing goods were made faster and cheaper. And so this is just one thing that was happening, and what Jules Verne had in his mind while he was writing From the Earth to the Moon, and which essentially helped Verne to create a story and imagine a projectile going from the Earth to the Moon. So Jules Verne himself was born in 1828 and died in 1905. And he was influenced by this form of writing called travel writing and a Robinsonade, which is essentially a desert island story. You're stuck on a desert island, etc. And he was also influenced by one of the greatest science fiction writers, who became actually one of the greatest science fiction writers of our time, Hugo Gernsback. And so Verne was a person who wanted to teach science to his audience, and he thought that in the future, knowing science was going to be vital to your survival. And so Verne set out to teach his readers about science, and we see this in the novel because the novel is a very, what you would call a hard science fiction novel, with lots of science and math, which was done purposefully. And From the Earth to the Moon captures the excitement towards technology at the time. And during that time, everyone was very enthusiastic about technology. Since how I said the Industrial Revolution, everyone thought that machinery was the future, and how these machines would make life so much easier for everyone. And so Verne, based on the ideas during his society, integrated into his novel about integrated a very positive picture of technology in his novel. And you could see that the novel is also very comedic. Verne makes fun of his characters. The similarities between Verne's projectile shot towards the moon and the actual real moonshot. So, the real moonshot and the novel, they were both done by Americans. Both were launched from Florida, both the projectile. And Florida was chosen because the moon lines up with the zenith and the angle in Florida. So the angle is most southerly in Florida, so it's a perfect place to shoot a projectile towards the moon. And they both use the same technology as weapons of mass destruction. So essentially, the projectile, which is a cannon, and the actual real moonshot were both the same technology as weapons of mass destruction. So rockets and cannons, projectiles, etc. And some overlying themes we see in From the Earth to the Moon, it's a cautionary tale. So essentially warning people about how we shouldn't try to go above and beyond what's humanly possible. As in the novel, we see that the projectile is essentially a fail. They didn't actually make it to the moon. There's also another overlying theme is this pursuit of knowledge. Essentially, the Barbicane and the people around him want to find out about the moon and pursue it and pursue that knowledge. Another theme is creation, impulse, ambition, science and technology. It's a romantic, not in the sense that we would see today, but in the sense that it's an imaginary and adventurous tale. Thank you guys for listening. I apologize if this is my first video, and so if it did not seem clear, if there was anything wrong with the video, I do apologize. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope it helped. Please leave a like and a comment, and subscribe if you like. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.